Meeting of the Criminal Justice Committee to order. Start with roll call.
Mr. Hess,
Present.
Mr. Byrne,
Present.
Mr. Lear,
Present.
Mr. Snipes, Ms. Dunbar,
Present.
Ms. Parker,
Present.
Mr. Fairfield, Mr. Carrico,
Present.
Mr. Eckhoff, Mr. Smith,
Present.
Ms. DeColo,
Present.
Mr. Swanson,
Present.
Mr. Long,
Present.
Mr. Kirkstra,
Present.
Mr. Hunter,
Here.
Mr. Wheeler,
Present.
Mr. Searoy.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Okay, I have one request for public comment. Eight.
Dialing call outside your area code
Uh-oh.
800 number, dial 1 first.
Okay.
Digit number.
Okay, how do I get to go off? Should have come in early for a test. So Maya Hendricks is not available. Is there any other public comment? Any other public comment? Go on for the approval of minutes of June 10th, 2020. Take a motion, Mr. Byrne, second by Mr. Smith. All in favor say aye. Opposed, same
Aye.
sign. Motion carries. Chief Judge. Is he not, nothing from the Chief Judge this morning. Up next, Circuit Clerk, Ms. Cianci. In your package, you have a copy of the monthly reports. Take a motion to approve. Mr. Eckhoff, second by
Second.
Mr. Byrne. Comments on your report, Sandy?
Good morning. No, nothing on that report. I don't have a copy of that with me. I forgot to bring one. So if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to research it and get back to you later.
Any questions or comments for Sandy on the report? Have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Computerization update.
So we are still working on the civil integration. We had a couple of hiccups about 2 weeks ago, but they're on the mend. And it's just a very tedious project, and we are testing the various case types to make sure that different motions and petitions, you know, connect when being received from one and integrated into the other system. So there's lots of nuts and bolts to it, but we're getting there. So I know it's a broken record, but it is what it is. So we're doing the best we can with that. So.
Any questions for Sandy on the computerization? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bones, I just wanted to tell you too, last month you had asked me about the traffic citations, you know, and what the rate was during the COVID when we were slowing down in court. And I queried March 30th through May 31st of this year and last year. This year we had 978 citations issued, and in 2019 we had 2,849. So
Wow.
it's quite a difference.
1,100 down then.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Lear.
Sandy, I know you said you didn't have the documents in front of you, but the amount that you show, $318,115 for revenue collected, that's pretty close to a usual amount, isn't it?
Which, oh, you mean the monthly? Yeah,
Yeah, the
yeah,
monthly.
really it is. I've been surprised the last couple months when I've read that it has been similar. It hasn't been wildly, different. So
Okay.
we are still collecting. People are coming in. The other day we had a guy come in and pay like $3,000 worth of tickets. So, they're doing it, and they are bringing cash, and it takes a long time. It took the clerk about 45 minutes to an hour to get it all done, because you have to do each one individually and then create the releases so that they can go to the DMV. And so it's a lot of work, but, we're still bringing in the money. So
All right, thank you.
thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, moving on to the state's attorneys. Mr. Rowe.
We do not have a grand jury report because we've not been holding grand jury proceedings. You may know that the alternative to a grand jury proceeding to bring a felony into court is to go to preliminary hearing. Those, of course, require us to set court dates, bring officers to court, have hearings. So you can only really schedule so many of those at a time, as you can imagine, because we're not bringing everything in for a preliminary hearing. Stuff is starting to back up a little bit in our office. So we are going to have 2 grand jury sessions coming up here soon, just to kind of clear out that backlog. It's going to be done in a very safe, socially distanced manner. It'll all be done over, at a location where there'll be plenty of room for them to socially distance and maintain that distance throughout not only selection, but also the hearings. Beyond that, we're just trying to get caught up and get back into the swing of things. So I don't know if anyone has any questions for me.
Questions for Mr. Rowe? Mr. Snipes.
Jim, how's that mentorship program going between you, the Y, and the school district or anybody else is buying in?
You just got to put a little salt in that wound, don't you?
No.
It really, we're devastated because once COVID hit, everything kind of fell apart, it seemed. We had finally got our first group of mentors through. They were trained, they got all of their certificates. We were ready to go and make the matches. And literally a week later, courthouse had to shut down. And no way we could put the mentees in close proximity with the mentors. So we've been maintaining contact with them. We just had a regular Zoom update with all of our mentors that were already certified. Keep them on board. They're all still anxiously waiting to be paired up, but as of right now, it's just not possible.
Are you anticipating the school year, in the beginning of the school year, that there should be some improvement?
I'm hoping so. Most of the schools are willing to accommodate the mentors to meet with the mentees in the school, socially distanced. Of course, that's going to depend now on what the school schedules look like.
No, and I think
in the classroom, so it's going to be a lot different to coordinate it. But the team that we have, that's that AmeriCorps funded grant. So Dylan, who is the coordinator for that program, he's doing a great job along with Cheryl, everyone involved on kind of transitioning that program to possibly include some virtual components.
And on a positive note, we kind of followed the young man that you mentored, and if I'm not mistaken, he's completed his first year of college.
It's me, man. I'm not gonna. Yeah, he's gonna be entering his sophomore year.
All right. Congratulations.
Any other questions or comments for the state's attorney? Thanks, Jim.
All right, thank you.
Up next, the public defender, Mr. Pentewick. In your package, you have a copy of the monthly report. Take a motion to approve.
So
Mr. Burns, second by Mr. Long. Comments on your report, Ed?
Unless there's some questions, I really don't have any comments. We're trying to get everything moving again. I've spoken to my staff regarding, just trying to get things back to normal or starting to get things back to normal. We're all back, obviously, for some time now, but the numbers just aren't catching up yet. Everyone involved, the court system, Mr. Rowe, everyone's on the same page, I think, as far as how we want to go forward and get these cases resolved. But there's always 1,000 different things that affect a negotiation or a case as it goes through the court system. But other than that, unless there's any questions, I've really got nothing to add today.
Any questions on the report for Mr. Pentewick?
I just
Mr.
have a general question. Steve Hunter, and I'd just like to say thank you for me being part of county government in this committee. Ed, how many staff do you have, and what's the racial breakdown?
First of all, congratulations, Mr. Hunter.
Thank you.
Good to have you here. Second of all, I think we have I should know the answer to that question, obviously. I got approximately 13 attorneys. The majority of them are part-time. We currently have 2 African-American attorneys. One is leaving for the state's attorney's office at the end of the month. I had to post his position, so that will be vacant, and I'll be interviewing for that position shortly. We've got 3 clerical staff, one of whom is African-American, one is Hispanic. We have 1 full-time investigator and 1 part-time investigator. The full-time investigator is African-American, and the rest are let me get my numbers right here. I think 3 female attorneys, and the rest are white males.
Oh, any internships at all?
We've got well, she's very informal, but she's a third-year law student. She is an intern. She comes in whenever she can, and she's been very helpful with the office, filling in some spots. But we were working on that through primarily, well, both KCC and Olivet, but obviously COVID happened, so that kind of put a kibosh on all of that.
Thank you very much, sir.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Anything else, Ed?
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Thanks.
Up next, probation, Mr. Latham. In your package, you have a copy of the probation report. Take a motion to approve that. Mr. Lear, second by Mr. Long. Comments on your report, Tom?
Just that you can see in the totals down at the bottom of the report, our contacts have doubled since last month, which is a good thing. But a lot of those are phone contacts, not in-person contacts, and it's still well short of what we normally would be doing. We normally would have 3,000 contacts on a regular month before the pandemic. But we're working slowly towards regular operations, doing more field contacts right now than we were before. But hopefully we won't have a setback and we can just keep moving along, and eventually, right now coming into the building is only a high-risk individuals. We're slowly going to try to expand that over time. I don't know the timetable on that. But our staff is doing a wonderful job of keeping track of these individuals considering the circumstances. But that's all I have on the report.
I got one quick question. For the juveniles in detention as of 7/13, you've got 5-3. What's that?
5 in custody, 3 are at River Valley.
3 are at River Valley, okay.
The other 2 are in custody of Jerome Combs.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Latham on the report? We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Anything else for us, Tom?
That's it. Thank you. Unless
Okay.
anybody had any questions.
Oh, Mr. Snipes?
One, at the River Valley Detention Center, is there there is a cost, but is there a possibility in order to reduce costs that the person could be on ankle bracelets, or is it to the point that they have to be detained?
I would say the juveniles they have detained up there now have to be detained. Obviously, we have GPS. We're using GPS. We've had 5 juveniles on GPS so far this year. We have 2 currently on. But the individuals up there now, I would say, need to be in custody.
All right.
Yeah, Tom, I think in fact one or two of the juveniles that are in custody were on ankle bracelets and took them off.
Correct, and we're still looking for.
And they're in custody. Yeah.
Any other questions for Mr. Latham? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, the sheriff. In your package, you have a copy of the sheriff's monthly report. Take a motion to approve. Mr. Eckhoff, second by Mr. Long. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. All right, everybody got the monthly report. A couple highlights from the report. Our local census through June of 2019 was 253. Our local census through June of 2020, which at some point we thought would be lower, is actually 268. So we're actually averaging 15 more this year, even through COVID, than. Now there's some reasons for that I'll get into a little later. But we obviously have an increase in our local population. As I said, the local census hasn't gone down since the COVID lockdown started on March 26th. And as most of you know, we have not stopped taking local arrests. And the majority of which are for drug offenses and weapons offenses and domestic batteries. So those are the three top charges that people are brought into the jail for. We currently have no COVID cases in our jail, and that's a credit to our jail administration, the entire staff, and our medical staff. So that's a definite plus, because other jails and other facilities have not been quite so fortunate. So credit to them. The out-of-county numbers, our average daily population last June of 2019 was 382, which includes U.S. Marshals and ICE. And our average daily population through June of 2020 is 227. So we're down significantly in our out-of-county. The main reason being that we have stopped taking U.S. Marshals and ICE detainees, just for the simple reason that we don't want to bring COVID down here from people that we don't know, the majority of which come from Chicago. And we know Chicago is certainly a hotspot for COVID. I believe that will start to change a little bit, at least with the Marshals. They're starting their court up just like we are here. And so there's going to be some transports that we'll do, and I'm sure there'll be significant arrests up there. I'm sure that the U.S. Marshals in Chicago, who have been in their office like most others, most everybody else, will be out in the field soon enough. And I suspect those numbers will start to jump a little bit. Questions on that? Our transports obviously are down significantly. We're not really going anywhere other than to the courthouse. And on a positive note, I guess, that's helped our mileage on our vehicles. So that's slowed that down a little bit. But we are not transporting near what we have in the past. Under the sworn services, traffic details our traffic details have increased through an IDOT grant that pays for our guys to be out doing traffic details, which has begun to increase our citations and warnings. Obviously, you heard the number earlier, and traffic citations throughout the county are down significantly. Obviously, COVID has a drastic effect on that as well. One positive, our fatal accidents in the county are down significantly. We had, if you remember, we had 24 last year. We have 5 so far this year. Obviously, we want that number to 0, but hopefully we can stay at 5 the rest of the year and continue to keep that number down. And the last section under revenue, our average, including housing, overtime, inmate telephone, and other revenue totals, averages about $970,000 a month. Obviously, there is a significant decrease I know the last 2 months were right around 660 or 600,000 a month. So those numbers have gone down significantly. So that will affect obviously the long-term number. But again, when you're not taking new ones, that's going to have an effect on it. So questions on the report?
Any questions? Mr. Hunter.
Para mis amigos hispanos, el alguacil es un amigo de mí. Anyway, for my Spanish friends, el alguacil is a sheriff. He's a friend of mine. And I won't speak any more Spanish, but something that transpired yesterday, right after I was sworn in, I based upon that particular activity, I was attacked.
Mr. Hunter, you're going to bring up a subject that's not about the report right now. Can you wait until we move down?
But I was trying to segue into
all right,
my
go ahead.
question. So, and let me just ask you this, Sheriff. Do you interface with Connect regarding the stats at all? Because there's some misunderstanding regarding, it appears that they think that you have just tons and tons of ICE detainees, and from this empirical data that you have here, that's not accurate.
Our report is submitted every month, and I believe it's available.
Mr. Wheeler?
That was a specific reason that I started doing that, is putting those numbers on, publishing them as he's talking about them.
Right.
So the public couldn't say that we weren't reporting the numbers on a regular basis. It used to be that we just got this piece of paper, and for the past year and a half, that's been up on the screen each and every time he talks.
Yeah. You see my segue?
Okay. Any other questions on the report before I ask mine? Once again, you jumped over your prison. Detainees going to prison?
Oh, yeah.
And what's released? How many do we have that are you're still holding?
The numbers, are you talking about the ones that have been sentenced?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I actually had that further down my list, but that's okay, we can talk about it now.
Okay.
So for those of you that don't know, the governor issued an executive order. Part of the governor's executive order on March 26th was that the Illinois Department of Corrections were not accepting new inmates from every county jail in the state of Illinois, even though statutorily the Illinois Department of Corrections is required to do so. So once again, the governor of Illinois has overstepped his bounds, which is pretty much habit now. And so we are stuck with about 25 inmates who have been sentenced to the Illinois Department of Corrections and unable to be transported there because they won't take them because of COVID. Even though, as I've kept you guys advised, and I realize some facilities may not be as fortunate, but we don't have inmates with COVID, knock on wood. But the Illinois Department of Corrections has chosen not to take them. Now, this works two ways. People think, well, that's probably a smart move because of COVID. But the problem is, Kankakee County taxpayers are now paying for them to stay here instead of the state of Illinois. So at some point, they're going to come out and say, well, the state of Illinois saved all this money. Well, yeah, they saved all this money, but each local jurisdiction had to spend it. It's a typical unfunded mandate that the state of Illinois is known for. So for those that don't know, the governor has extended those executive orders continually, which we all know that it's going to court and he's been ruled against and it's appealed and it's who knows what's going to happen with it. But the bottom line is they are still not taking those inmates. And we have over 25, including the ones that have been sentenced and the ones who have an Illinois Department of Corrections warrant for violating their parole that are in our custody that should be in the custody of the Illinois Department of Corrections. So the Illinois Sheriff's Association has sued the state of Illinois and the governor because of his violation of statute. And I actually sent, the beginning of July, I sent the state of Illinois a bill for housing for what totaled about $167,000 from housing from March 26th, which is the day the executive order took effect, through June 30th. And again, we're still accumulating bills because we still have those guys. And the email I got back was, thank you for your email. We cannot discuss this issue because it's pending litigation. So that's what we get from our state government.
Mr. Byrne.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sheriff answered the question I was going to ask what the cost to the county taxpayers currently is at.
Right now, it's 160, well, through June 30th is 167,000. That includes housing and medical cost.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on the report?
So I can cross that off my later.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the report. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. EMA personnel change.
Yeah, most of you know, over the course of time, we've had a number of great EMA directors, present company included, Craig Long, and dating back, even after Craig, Chief Chad Gessner was our EMA director for quite some time. Lieutenant Andy Baston took over for him as he moved, as Chief Gessner moved over to patrol. And his assistant, and especially during this last 3 or 4 months, has been Becky Powell, who has done outstanding work as Lieutenant Baston's assistant. One of the things that we as a department sometimes lack, as you all know, when things happen with police, one of the biggest criticisms is always police need to be properly trained. Police need to be properly trained. The police aren't trained. So we are shifting Lieutenant Baston back to our patrol division to assist Chief Gessner, and Andy will be in charge of all of our department training. The state has mandated significant amounts of training for police. And while we are up to date, we need to stay up to date and be even better. And this is going to make us better. Becky Powell being in charge of EMA will make us better. So I'm happy for Becky. She has been with us for slightly over 20 years. She was an administrative assistant in our investigations division and also participated in a lot of the investigations as a data analyst clerk, where she gathered information for our detectives who were investigating anywhere from homicides to sexual assault cases, things like that. So, and she has proven herself. I have no doubt she will serve us well in that capacity. So that was more or less just a informational thing more than anything. I don't think I need any approval.
Okay.
To do that.
Cops grant.
Yeah. So one of the other big issues in our jurisdiction, we have schools located in the unincorporated areas. Lorenzo Smith, St. George, some of the Herscher School District, and the Kankakee Area Career Center, which a lot of people don't realize that the Career Center is actually in the county's jurisdiction. All of those schools at one time or another over the past 3 or 4 years have reached out wanting access to a school resource officer, of which obviously with our staffing we could not accommodate. We would respond. If they would ask for a particular day for whatever reason, we would send an officer out to the school for a day. But the true essence of a school resource officer is to provide some instruction, some relationship with the students, and we just weren't able to do that. So I believe it was back in January we applied for a grant through the COPS grant, and we just got notified last Friday that we did get awarded 2 spots. Now, here's the problem with any grant, and we've gone through this before. The grants only covers salary. They don't cover benefits. So when you're talking, and the salary is not the starting salary, it's 75% of salary. So the salary will cover $41,000 per officer per year for 3 years. The benefits is where obviously the cost is and the concern that we have. So I have some numbers that I don't know that if you want to hear them, I can certainly give them to you, but basically what I'm looking for is to move this to finance. If you guys are okay with the possibility of having these school resource officers in the county, the plan is to put one officer at the Career Center and then split one officer between St. George and Lorenzo Smith.
Okay.
What's the pleasure? You want to hear numbers? Mr. Snipes?
I guess I'm looking for some information. I think having cops or resource officers, excuse me, in the schools are great. But I need to know if the schools are requesting, I know we have them in Kankakee School, but in their budget, they also allocate a certain amount for the resource. Are we getting?
No, we could ask, but I know that in talking to, we've talked to everybody over the course of the last couple of weeks, and the biggest question was, is there any cost on our end? And so that tells me that they don't have, they have no budget for it, I guess is the simple answer.
That was a tax watchdog that was barking.
Yeah, you're right.
Mr. Hunter?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, what is your pleasure? You looking for a motion to move this over the finance or what?
Are we wanting to hear some numbers first before we forward it to finance?
I'm just asking. Yeah. Then we'll ask the questions. I thought, you know, in terms of parliamentary procedure, I thought you'd motion, second, and then discuss it. Wow, that's my school thought.
You're making a motion to move it?
Yeah, I'll make that motion, yeah.
Okay, Mr. Hunter makes the motion to move it, Mr. Burns second. Now go to your discussion with numbers.
So the numbers per year per officer are about $59,800. So that equates out to, over the course of 3 years, is $358,000. Now, that sounds like an awful lot, and it is. But what you have to remember is, over the course of the next probably 3 to 5 years, we have a number of officers who are going to be retiring. And what that will do is we will have in effect about approximately at least 2 per year over the next 3 years. So the difference between a 25-year deputy and a new deputy is about $30,000. So when you take that number and take that $30,000 times 2, which is $60,000, you end up, it ends up costing the county about $119,000, or I'm sorry, $59,630 per year for both over those numbers. But we will detail this out much more. I have them written down here. We'll have them detailed on paper when we send it to the finance committee with specific people who are retiring so that we know.
Mr. Chairman, I might ask the sheriff, what are the inherent benefits of having a school resource officer? So obviously the relationship between police and the students, as they, you know, right now we have a student, or we have a police officer in the regional alternative school. The regional alternative school are basically those kids who can't function in a normal school setting, have no respect for the police. I mean, we are not a school resource officer over at the regional alternative school. We are a police officer, not a school resource officer. There's a big difference. So the advantage is we are much more able to involve ourselves with the kids, with the families, with the teachers, with the administration, to benefit everybody in the long run, and obviously most importantly, safety, which is first and foremost. So that would be the benefit. Again, you know, there's some talk out there, not so much around here, but the talk out here about pulling police officers from schools, which I think is a huge mistake. But, you know, that's how people feel about it in some places, and that's certainly their prerogative. But
Mr. Wheeler.
Just curious on how the, I don't say the pecking order of how this is staffed worked. Do you typically have somebody that's more experienced that goes into the school and then new people go on the road? Or do you look for somebody that's maybe closer to the age of the students, or, you know, I don't want to say more relatable I'm just curious.
No, I'm trying to avoid the age question. Being elderly myself, experienced, yeah. No, I mean, obviously, we want somebody in there who's going to interact with the kids. I mean, my own personal feeling is I don't want some 21 or 22-year-old police officer in a high school setting with 17, 18, 19-year-old kids. I'd much rather have maybe 30 plus. I mean, but then you get into the whole age thing. Well, you didn't give me this because I'm only 21, you know, so yeah, it's just and it'll be a department need, what we have. You know, the other advantage, Mr. Hunter, to finish, actually to go along, is that, you know, we will have that officer available to us, you know, over the breaks, over Christmas, over the spring breaks, over the summer. So, I mean, that'll be advantageous for us too, to kind of cover vacations in the summer as well.
That was going to be my follow-up.
Yeah.
What if the holidays don't match up and,
yeah,
you know, overtime and all that
right.
stuff? Okay.
Right.
And they would interface with Tom's shop too, I would think too, right?
They could, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Any other questions or comments?
I do.
Okay,
Chairman.
we have a motion.
Tinker has one.
Ms. Parker.
Chair. Thank you, Chairman. I support this totally, not only for the safety of those children, but it's good community relations right now. From what we're seeing on the news, that we need to promote that relationship between safety officers and the children. So I totally support this.
Any other questions or comments? We have a motion and a second to move this to finance. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. ODO, Officer of Detention Oversight Inspection.
Yeah, so this is one of many ICE inspections that our Corrections Division deals with annually. ODO stands for the Office of Detention Oversight. This was originally scheduled, I believe, back in March, Chad? Yeah. And obviously with COVID, it got put back, put off. Normally they come to our building. However, this inspection was done strictly via video and phone and interviews, and it is something that is required, and it is strictly for ICE. While we have not received, this happened actually July 6th through the 9th, so it just happened last week. We have not received the final report yet in writing via email, but we have what's called a closeout phone conference at the end of this on Thursday the 9th. And just a little synopsis of it. The evaluators, who are all corrections people, were very impressed with not only the people that work at our jail, but how clean it is, what we do every day, and I can't, you know, thank the corrections staff enough for what they do and what they deal with every day. And two of the things that really stuck out, and these are something that you as a county should be proud of. In these inspections, they identified two things as what's considered best practice. Not best practice in the state of Illinois, but best practice nationwide. And those two things are our visitation system, which allows literally a detainee in our custody, in ICE custody, can actually visit with any family member he is able to visit with who lives anywhere in the world via video. And they spoke on that a lot, about how to be able to allow them to talk with family and to visit. And they identified that as a best practice, which those best practice, those things identified as best practice aren't given out every day. So the second one is our dental care. In fact, the evaluator said it's the first time that he knows of that dental care in a jail facility has been identified as a best practice. So kudos to Dr. Ryan and Dina, his assistant, who come in 2 to 3 times a week, who provide dental services for not only ICE, but they provide dental services for everybody. As I said, our inmates are treated better. Our local inmates are treated better because of ICE, because ICE is treated so well and there's so many standards. So kudos to those best practices. That's something that we in corrections and we in the sheriff's office hang our hats on, because that's what we want. We want the best practice if we can afford it, Mr. Chairman. So,
Mr. Hunter.
Yeah, let me just make a comment. I know that's public information that's coming out from you, but is there a possibility we can get a copy of that report?
As soon as we get it, we don't have anything yet, and it'll probably take another maybe 15 to 30 days to get it, but yeah, we'll get something.
But you're articulating some things there. Those are just notes or what?
Yeah, so we have a closeout. The last day, all the evaluators sit down and they talk about what, obviously, the good things and certainly the bad things. I can tell you from I guess on the bad end, I don't want to just say that, we're perfect, because we're not. But I will tell you.
Are those findings? We have findings, but
the problem with the findings, well, it's not a problem, but our findings are basically the things that they have found are normally, and in our case, almost all of them, are findings that we do, but they're not listed in our policy as some sort of procedure. So they're things that are done, we have the documentation that they're done, but they're not in our policy. So they're more or less policy findings more so than not doing anything. And those are easily fixable. And in this case, everything was fixed before the evaluators were done. But they list those findings as what they found, because that's the way they were doing them before they got here. And then we just put them in policy, and they've even referenced it saying, this has already been taken care of. This has already been taken care of.
So you got a corrective action plan?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And just to give you some idea, because I know at some point there's always that, we treat ICE so bad. These are the Illinois County Jail Standards. I don't even know how many pages, but this is front and back. This is Illinois County Jail Standards. These are ICE standards. So, I don't know, just to give you some idea of where we're at with how we treat everybody in our custody.
I'm the new kid on the block. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. But let me say this, there's a learning curve for this new guys, right, Long? Right, but let me just say this, and it's in keeping with the activities of the sheriff. I wear several different hats in this community. I'm the vice chairman of the NAACP local chapter. Additionally, I'm the vice chairman of the Hispanic Partnership. We've had a long-standing relationship with the Sheriff's Department, State's Attorney's Department, Coroner's Office, etc. June 2nd, you guys may recall, in this county, some of you guys present here attended the rally, which was co-sponsored by the NAACP, the Hispanic Partnership, and other individuals. We had people. The sheriff played a substantial role in that. The state's attorney was there, other individuals as well too. Mayors were there, other elected officials. But we initially had planned to be at the mall on June 2nd. The day before at noon, we were notified that we couldn't have the rally at the mall the day before, 24 hours before the event. I made a phone call to the sheriff. Within hour and a half, 2 hours, we had changed the venue and had everything covered. Based on a phone call from El Alguacil, that's the sheriff in Spanish for those of our Hispanic brothers who are watching. And I just want to say that the state's attorney was the keynote speaker. Ken McCabe played a substantial role. The FAIR committee did a hell of a job in terms of assisting us pull this thing off. There were in excess of 700 people, right, Mr. Burns? He was an attendee at that particular venue, no problems whatsoever, in large part based upon the activities and the leadership of the sheriff and his personnel. Ken McCabe was, I got in trouble for saying this yesterday. He was a rock star as well too in terms of providing services to the people for the county. But I just want to say, oftentimes you hear, the allegations and as they say in Spanish, mentiras, lies about certain public officials and stuff. But I'm just here to tell you that your state's attorney and your sheriff and your personnel, the fair personnel, stood up and really, I think the people of Kankakee County got more bang for their buck for the services on that particular day. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Just two. I mentioned the corrections vehicles. Just some information. We have two buses, an 05 and an 07. The 07 has actually blown an engine and is out of service. We are evaluating what our best option is right now. If I recall, I think the buses were about 75,000 or so way back in the day. We're not sure what we're going to do. We've got a price right now of about $19,000 to replace that motor. We're trying to get by without it, which so far so good. Of course, we've had COVID, so we haven't had a need. Our two most recent vehicle purchases were transit vans in 2018. Both have over 70,000 miles. And then all other transport vehicles, which there are 10 of them, including some old Tahoes and then some other vans. They range in miles anywhere from 237,000 miles to just over 100,000. So our transport supervisors are doing a great job in, making sure we're taking the right vehicles to the right places and trying to care for these vehicles as best we can. But just a heads up that we're probably going to explore some options down the road. And then lastly, some of you, this has been out there, we've talked about the relationship that law enforcement locally has with the NAACP. And we meet, I believe it's every third month or every other month, sometimes more, sometimes less. But our next meeting is July 23rd, which is going to be at the EOC. And we are actually going to broadcast that live for people to see, to kind of expand the transparency, to let them know that law enforcement and the NAACP work together to solve the issues locally. And quite frankly, our local NAACP and the relationship with law enforcement should be a model nationwide as to how we deal with each other on a professional basis. It is just, I believe during a lot of this stuff over the last couple months, I think I've talked to the president of the NAACP more than I've talked to my wife. But that's a good thing because they're great conversations. We get things done. We deal with things as they come up. And I can't say enough about the relationship that local law enforcement has with groups out there. So thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Mr. Byrne.
Predates, the situation in the last several months. You guys need to really keep up on what transpires regarding, I was in charge of drug overdose stuff. We had a panel involving the sheriff, KMEG, state's attorney, coroner, etc. So it predates what transpired here recently. So, we've been meeting with the sheriff's department and law enforcement, police chiefs, city administrators, mayors for the last
2015.
Yeah.
2015.
Mr. Byrne.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a comment and a question. I want to commend Sheriff. Lately, it's been unfashionable to be pro law enforcement, unfortunately, around parts of the country. And we're very blessed, like we've talked about, Mr. Hunter said, we have strong leadership in law enforcement in this county that communicates with the community and does a lot. And over the last year or so, we've had public comments that have come here from out of town and in town and address a topic that, quite honestly, is more of a federal issue. My question is to those people, have they addressed these questions with the people that can install the change in immigration policy? And the fact that our as we've just heard, our facility is top notch, our staff is top notch, and again, when we hear examples of detainees, the narrative is that people are just being dragged off the street, when in fact, if you're being detained, more than likely you committed a crime. Sheriff, is that correct? That the detainees we have are there because they committed a crime in the United States of America?
Yes. And again, we don't know that when they come to our place.
They just come to you. There's no detaining from our officers.
Yeah, we do not have. I mean, they come to us not by crime, but by classification. So,
thank you.
Any other questions or comments, Mr. Snipes?
I was going to save it to after the animal control update and just add it, but I want to say, I heard the comments on yesterday morning. I've heard the comments numerous times throughout the year regarding this ICE program. But I took personal exception when it went so far as to allege abuse or some type of wrongdoing in the in our correction facility. Now, I was in law enforcement. I served as the auxiliary police officer here in the city of Kankakee, and also for the state of Illinois was the RID officer that transported inmates to the various places and things of this nature. Work with the state police and the whole 9 yards. And so a lot of times I have to look and see if is there any wrongdoing. I viewed the detention center, did not see any problems. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, Chuy Garcia showed up here unexpectedly and could have been denied, but the sheriff went over anyway because we were doing, I think, a committee meeting or a county board meeting, I don't know which, and he just went over and allowed them to come in to see the normal operations, and no one seems to have saw all of this abuse. So when I heard it yesterday, you know, it kind of disturbed me. And yesterday, unbeknownst to me, I was driving to my house. There was a sheriff vehicle with the lights on. All of a sudden, I see at least 8 or 9 Hispanics and one laying on the ground in front of the car. So I'm thinking the individual got hit. And I walked that block to go see, kind of observe. And I saw a deputy standing there, and I'm saying, you know, like, what's going on? I'm just observing. Come to find out, a vehicle was stopped, and it stopped in the middle of the road. The officer put on the lights and secured the safety. Now, there's 9 Hispanics that was there, and stayed there for a half an hour until we were able to move the vehicle from Maple Street over to the side. He couldn't move it, but he allowed them the opportunity because another truck came. And when I saw this, he patiently worked with them, and I know he didn't ask for one ID or anything. At the end of the conclusion, I did offer some assistance because I told the guy, I said, I think you can move the vehicle a little bit quicker if you take it out of park and put it in neutral. And that did work. But, you know.
Good advice.
The officer was so professional. I felt so proud because it was something on rehearsal. I said, Lord, what can I do to hang my tarp to support, you know, law enforcement that's doing the right thing? And in this case, the deputy was A. Hartman. That was on his badge, on his his ID. And so as a result, he didn't know who I was. At the end, he says, now I don't think I can. I'm gonna have to work on this. He said, I know your face. Don't you do something in the community? We're gonna have to work on that, sir. But everything else, he did everything at the end, stayed to the end, and all of the Hispanic men and the ladies come and shook the hand, and the officer, wherever, he didn't back it up saying this is COVID. He shook their hands. All of them was very appreciative. This is what I normally see when I look at the officers, because sometimes they don't see me. I just sometimes stay amiss. It's good that you probably don't know me. I don't know how you don't know me, but if you don't, that's fine. And the officer was so professional. So I send kudos to Officer, Hartman, for doing what I generally see our officers doing anywhere and anywhere. So when the person said that there's a personal vendetta, that is not the case or whatever. I think you need to look in the community, because I don't have a report here. And if I did, I would run to the sheriff immediately and say, your people out here doing this, that, and the other. And he know I would. But I don't see that. I think we have a very professional staff here. I think I put a little caveat at the end. I support the black, the blue, and I support you too. So as a result, kudos to that officer that basically embodies what you're doing already. The professionalism, the integrity, I think needs to be expressed. And I think people need to appreciate basically law enforcement. I do not, and I will state for the record, I do not ever support anything that would defund law enforcement. Can you imagine what would happen in Chicago if they defund law enforcement or in Kankakee or anywhere?
Yep.
Thank you. And that kind of gave me some kudos from what I heard yesterday.
Good.
Thank you, Mr. Snipes.
Anything else? Animal control update.
Oh, Colton had a question.
Oh, Colton.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I just actually had a statement. As board members, I took a tour of our ICE detainee detention area in Jerome Combs, and I would go ahead and encourage everybody to go ahead and do that as well. I mean, that's top notch, like they said in the report. And I agree with Mr. Snipes. I do not support defunding the police.
Okay.
So if that's the case, then, Commissioner, could the chairman or the sheriff or state's attorney or somebody draft a resolution that we could consider and debate, articulate, and vote on it at some point regarding the issues that is before the country regarding defunding law enforcement?
Mr. Chairman, that's a question for you.
It's appropriate for this committee to make a recommendation to executive committee to do so. That's the policy committee. But if criminal justice feels that is something we need to take a position on and let people know our intent, it should come out of executive and then to the full board. So be happy to, if that's.
There are a lot of moving parts. For example, the sheriff was at the apex of the 10 shared principles that the local law enforcement chiefs, sheriffs, and everybody's signed off on. And I'm sure that on the 23rd, we're going to be talking about mechanisms as to how to assess and evaluate the implementation of those 10 shared principles, right, Sheriff? Mm-hmm. So that's probably what's key. So I think at your direction, Chair, it'd be appropriate that this matter be referred to the executive committee for consideration.
Mr. Wheeler.
It was just a comment that we did adopt as a county, the 10 shared principles. We did have that discussion, and I think it could go further talking about, the word was atrocities going on at Jerome Combs. That stuck with me. Yeah. And it still bothers me to this very second when I heard that again. Mm-hmm. There's a gross misrepresentation, intentional misrepresentation of what's going on. Correct. I've seen no children in cages in Jerome Combs. We do not go out and pick anybody up here locally that is actually against state law, which we have said multiple times. There's been more overtures to partner with these organizations and individuals to go lobby Washington together for change in national immigration policy. And the answer has always come back to me, let everybody out, then we'll talk. And that's a non-starter, because we're not going to let people out that we picked up at DOC that are murderers and child rapists and everything else while we have your conversation. We can do both. They can work parallel. There's an unwillingness to have a conversation. Basically seems like it's over one individual who resides in Washington and not over fixing a situation where both political parties are playing games with people's lives.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
Mr. Byrne.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to second Mr. Hunter's motion where we show a support of our local law enforcement. We are really, truly, we are fortunate to have the sheriff and his staff. And seconding back to what Chairman Wheeler said about the word atrocities and what was said at the meeting yesterday, which I found, sorry, but completely ridiculous, some of the accusations. We have great staff over there. There's a reason why our facility is chosen over others for these, but I definitely support a motion to move to executive to acknowledge our law enforcement support and be against, I'm wholeheartedly against defunding law enforcement.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on it? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Mr. Snyder.
Madam Chair, if I may, and correct me if I'm wrong, we do not have an ICE detention center here. What we do have is a detention center that provides a service.
Right.
And so as a result, there's a distinguishable differences. I don't have an ICE detaining center here. We don't in Kankakee County. We simply have a facility that deals with detention. And before we even dealt with the detention in partnership with the Homeland Security, we had it from when we had the Chicago. Most folks say we don't want the Chicago folks here. I mean, we've had naysayers, but I have yet to see and I've seen, we have the Hispanic partnership here. We have a lot. I've yet to see, most of the people I've seen come from out of town that comes with these allegations. Most of the people that live here, I don't see them coming in great numbers saying that they see abuse and things of that nature. So that's just another point to be noticed. But I do want the correction that we don't have an ICE detention center. We have a detention center that partnerships with still, I guess, Chicago and the Homeland Security or whomever. I don't know, but we provided service to all in the past years that I've known of.
Okay. Animal control.
Without going into too much detail, animal control has a couple pending criminal investigations going. And it's about all I can give you at this point, but that was one of the goals that the chairman had when animal control was shifted over to the sheriff's office. Mm-hmm. And we are right in the middle of a couple. So everything else at animal control is going pretty well. COVID animal control felt the effects of COVID as well. It seemed that when people were home, the number of animals that we had in our facility were down significantly. Of course, now that we're kind of semi-open back up, those numbers are starting to jump up again, but people did care for their animals during the COVID lockdown, so that was a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Any questions on animal control? Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Up next is the coroner, Mr. Gessner. In your package, you have a copy of the monthly report and the monthly receipts of money. Take a motion to combine and approve them. Mr. Fairfield, second by Mr. Byrne. Good morning, Bob. Questions on your report or answers, comments?
I muted myself. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Not very well.
How about now?
Can you guys hear him? Bob.
Yeah, we can hear him over the Zoom. We can hear you fine, Bob. I don't know if you're in the room.
Can you hear me, Chairman?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Going down my list there, is the total number of calls. We were at 102, 19 for the coroner, which means that I have to sign off on the death certificate. 9 autopsies, so we're still holding that autopsy right around 10, which a while back we were holding 6 to 7. Other than that, moving down the list on there, those all seem to be self-explanable. I can take any type of questions if you have that.
Mr. Byrne.
Mr. Chairman. Bob, are you seeing an increase in suicides over the last, say, since trending from over the previous years to this year with all that's been going on?
Yeah, I was going to get into that there. I was going to talk about the overdoses. That's a huge problem right now. But so far, 840 deaths we've had in Kankakee County. Only nine have been determined as suicides. In 2017 and 2019, we had 19 suicides. In 2018, we had just 4 suicides. So I got to speak last night with their suicide awareness program that we did last night there, and brought that out to the county on what our reports show. But yeah, we are seeing an increase since that number of 8 right now. We've gone to 9 as of yesterday.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on it, Mr. Snipes?
Bob, I'm looking at your from the Kankakee County Health Department gloves and gowns, and with the 1,690. Is that something that was supplied to you?
Yes, that's off our grant that we have with the Narcan grant.
Oh, okay.
That comes off of our grant. But we are buying more stuff because we're anticipating the problems that might be coming in the future here. We were down to the nitty gritty on the last COVID stuff, so we've increased our inventory quite a bit.
Oh, okay.
Any other questions or comments on the report? Have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
What else you have, Bob?
Well, it seems to be a repeat all the time, but I gotta bring it to you. Our number of overdoses have increased extremely. We're on our way up to 56. We have 28 cases right now with 7 pending that we know is going to be overdoses. That'll bring us to 35. Our second high was 36. Our second high was 36, so it's increasing, and it's the fentanyl out there, but it's also with cocaine and heroin. It's a mixture of it, and people don't know that, and it seems to be getting worse. In fact, at 9 o'clock today, we have 2 overdoses right now. As I get done with this program, I got to go over there real quick. When we have that many overdoses, I just want you to be aware of, if we were 86,000 over last in 2017, you can see where I'm going to be right now. Our anticipation right now is we're way over on autopsies. So due to these 35 cases, actually going to be more than that. So I just wanted to alert you on that factor. We're doing everything we can to try to prevent that. I can't get out and speak the way we were. We thought we were bringing those numbers down when we had 28 and 29. It's difficult. It makes me mad that I can't get out there, to at least go to different places to be able to talk about this. So I'm doing the best I can, but just to let you know, our numbers are going up on overdoses.
Any questions or comments for the coroner? Mr. Eckhoff.
Bob, how many autopsies do you usually do a year?
How many per year? Probably right around 80. We were 89 last year, and we're at 69 right now. We have 5 months to go.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thanks, Bob.
No problem.
Is there any old business come before the committee? Any old business? Any new business to come before the committee? Mr. Snipes.
And just one quick thank you. I do want to thank the sheriff when we had the Hearts Across Our County, sponsored by the African American Improvement Association, God in the Prayer, some clergy and others. They came out. Yeah, we made the call because we couldn't get the lights to work, and the maintenance individual came out and the whole 9 yards, and they got us up and they got us running. You know, it's just nice to know that you can make a call. I saw Andy out there and some others, so we do appreciate when you know, county, you know, just kind of works together and to do some things, and it was just nice to make a call and have that rectified. So I wanted to send my thank yous out.
Thank you. Mr. Hunter.
Yeah, let me just say this. I'm a new kid on the block, and I want to form some kind of alliance with the brethren and the sisterhood of the county board, as well as this particular committee, and I'm pleased that the chairman saw fit to place me on this committee. There's some big shoes to fill with George. You know, I don't know what size he wore, but I wear 14. So, but you know, I bring something, you know, to this committee, hopefully, in terms of being a pragmatist. 40 years experience with the City Council of Kankakee, 39 years of service to the state of Illinois. You know, I was born and raised here and lived in other areas, educated different states, but I want to work with you guys. And anything and everything that you think I may need to know, you know, feel free to call me. I don't screen my phone calls. I take all phone calls. I do lunch. You're looking at me, and you know, I don't miss too many meals, but I like to work with everybody and offer a olive branch to, you know, you guys, because I think all of us are working for the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens. So I'm here to join the club.
Good. You were supposed to bring sweet rolls today. You're the new man, but you forgot. So. Yes.
I make a motion, we close.
Very second by Mr. Long. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.